one of the mentors here in Build Network. And we're going to talk a little bit today. If you guys can, put on your cameras if you can. If not, definitely understand. But tonight we're definitely going to talk about what takes place after a solar deal gets closed. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of, you know, most times we all get a chance to see what takes place before the deal, but don't really know and understand what takes place after the deal is closed. And unfortunately, a lot of people are kind of like left out in the dark. A lot of mentees are left out in the dark of that process, and you shouldn't be. And the reality is that the mentor and the mentee should both know and understand exactly what is taking place in the deal overall. Now, it is the mentor's job to lead the process, but the mentee, if you are looking to learn and grow as a potential solar closer, then you should have a clear understanding of that process as well. And we're going to jump into that in a moment here. So just bear with me as I pull up the presentation slideshow. All right, we have some slides for today, and hopefully, this is useful for everyone on the line. So I'll go ahead and get that started. All right, and I know everyone can see the screen here. So let's just get rocking and rolling, right? So once again, the going solar process from start to finish after signing the contract. Now we know once the contract is signed, a lot of people, you may not really get a chance to see what takes place after. And I first want to start off by this. These are the next steps that take place after a deal gets closed, right? So first and foremost, the deal needs to be it needs to get approved, right? And can you help let people in, please? Process the deal needs to get approved. In addition to the paperwork being signed, that's all in step one. Then the site survey, which is the engineers coming out, getting on top of the roof, checking the electrical aspect of the house, as well as the design, which I'll show you should be called final design. This is where the scope of work and everything takes place, SOW. In addition to that, the permitting, right? As we take care of all of the permits for the deal actually get approved by the city and the state, then the installation, then TPO. TPO, I'll just be direct and clear. It stands for permission to operate, right? Permission to operate. However, in step six, there's a step that they're not showing, and it is the inspection stage, right? So we're going to talk about the inspection stage instead of a point to operate, just due to the fact that in the inspection stage, it's important for the mentee, also the client, to know what's going on in that stage. And then the last is the system operation. So we're going to be able to go through all of these steps, so we all know and are clear about the process after the contract is signed, right? So getting approved and signing the contract, right? So once the deal is closed, this is a template of a deal close, and this is what the deal looks like when we go to sign, well, I'm sorry, to apply for the credit to get approved, right? So as you can see on the lower left-hand side, it says apply now. So we just want to click on that button. Once clicking on that button, right, you will now see the option to either email the credit application and or do the credit application with the client. Now, just due to simplicity, it's usually best to do the credit application with the client. So, it can just be done smoothly. Sometimes if you email it out, it doesn't always, they may not get it. It may be in a junk mail, kind of just complicates the problem unnecessarily. So I usually just do it with them. Obviously, due to the sake of private information, we're not going to show all of the information we need to type in, but it's very basic: name, number, email address, last four of the social, um, birth date. Once you type in all of that information, client either gets approved or declined. When the client gets approved, this is what it looks like. right? Pretty simple and pretty basic. Now, once the client is approved, right? And we move to signing off on the contract, right? So there's a loan contract that you would get from the loan company or whatever finance company you use. And then there are some basic contracts here. Obviously, this is a deal in Texas that I'm using as an example. And then there'll be some other contracts that the homeowner would need to sign, right? So it says a Texas contract, a Texas permit authorization, and then solar disclosure non-rebate contract as well, or a document that they need to sign as well. So basically, in the state of Texas, right, there's three documents that need to be signed. This does vary depending on state, also city, right? Also, depending on what utility company you're using as well. So in different areas, they have different documents that you need to sign, but basically the goal is to get these documents signed as well, right? So once these all get done and completed, now we move to the setting up of the site survey, for setting up of the site survey. And if there's any questions, just put it in the chat for now. And I'll definitely be able to, or jot them down, and I'll definitely be able to answer all right after, right? So once we are looking to set up the site survey, there's some basic questions that are asked, for basically the consultant to ask the client, which we do. Just check everything off that applies, and then we'll be able to actually select a few different dates to schedule the site survey, right? Pretty simple stuff, but obviously there's a variety of different days based on what schedule would work best for the homeowner, right? And all of our site surveys usually take place early in the morning, which is a great deal. So they get in, take care of the work nice, bright, and early, and get done with the day, right? So we set this up, and this is great. Now, having the act, this is where the deal moves from in front of the computer to now, a little bit further away, right? Could we help by letting some of the people in, please? So yeah, having your site survey. Okay, so on site survey day, this is what it looks like. They usually come out with the van, and everyone is usually excited. And then they just basically get on top of the roof. Now, just to explain in more detail, the site survey is for the engineers of Freedom Forever to check the roof first and foremost and understand the condition of the overall roof, right? Also to get the measurements to see exactly if the measurements from the satellite image were correct, or just to get the specific measurements, I should say. But in addition to that, also checking the electrical panel, right? And the meters. So as you can see, these are some meters that are outside of the house as someone is actually doing a site survey, right? And also checking sometimes the inside of the house for the electrical panel as well. So this is all that takes place. We're talking about the roof, right? Checking, making sure the roof is in good standing, in addition to all of the electrical work. Now, if there's any issue with the roof and or the electrical work of the house, usually in most cases, the engineers that are out there don't necessarily relay this information to the client. And this is actually in your best interest, right? Because you don't want to, the engineers that go out, they don't they're not consultants. Let me put it like that, right? They're not consultants, so they may not necessarily know how to explain the situation to the homeowner in the right way. They're very technical, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, there's some clients that may be technical, so it might be a good conversation. However, if there's any work that needs to be done, there's a cost usually associated with that. So instead of speaking about that cost to the homeowner, they usually bring the information back, put it into the computer, put it into the notes, and then the consultant gets notified of that. And now the consultant can explain it to the client and a much easier, more relatable way to continue to move the job forward, right? So now, scope of work, SOW, and the final design. This is usually where most jobs sometimes can get stuck because, as I just mentioned, sometimes there's more costs that's associated with the job, right? So if you've seen, some of the meters, some of them may have looked a little jacked up, right? So if they looked a little messed up, or if some of the wires are kind of all over the place, the reality is that a homeowner may need a main panel upgrade, right? They may need some work done. So whatever work needs to get done now gets sent to the scope of work area, right? And in scope of work, here's an example. Well, this is not an example, but let me s- go with the first one that I was saying. So if anything needs to be done, it moves to the scope of work section. And then if there's an additional cost, they let us know, and then we could possibly put it into the deal, right? Whether that's an additional 100, 500, 2,000, $3,000. It usually can be put into the deal and worked into the deal. Now, for most clients, this may change, you know, uh, affect the monthly payment, roughly about $10, $15. And if someone, yeah, it may affect the monthly payment like a bit, not too much. But this is where it actually takes place. Now, the two pictures that you see here, the picture on the left, if you see very closely, there's a design there, and this is the design that I made, all right? But because this is a satellite image and we're not actually on the property, if you see the design to the right, that's the design that the in-house team designed after coming to the house. And as you can see, it's slightly different. What's different about the two designs? If you can see the lower left-hand side, there's no panels on that lower corner, right? Lower left, right? There are on the picture on the left-hand side, but there aren't on the pictures on the right, right? That's somewhat of a difference. In addition to that, if you see the three panels on the right-hand side picture, the three panels to the right, then that's not the same outlay of what it looks like on the left. So basically, what happened is I put a design in, right, that I thought was good. And then the company said, nope, your design is not as efficient as it could be. We're going to design it for maximum efficiency. And then they designed this. Now, it's not too far off, which is good, but they design it where it can get maximum efficiency. And as you see at the top, it says SOW confirmed. This just means that they were able to change the design, but it didn't add any unnecessary extra costs. And now we're moving the job forward. Great deal, right? When you get to that level, when you have deals going, you want to see scope of work confirmed. Why? Because obviously it moves the job forward. But in addition to that, when it comes to payment, if you're familiar with M1, M1 is when you get paid first, right? And you get paid first at M1 right after scope of work is confirmed. So a very important part of the process to make sure that things move forward and they move forward smoothly, right? So that's great. Now on to the next, the permitting process, right? And this is where, once again, the permits get sent out to the township to get looked at, reviewed, and processed. Now, this is what it looks like, right? And if you can see the screen, the pic image in the lower left-hand side is, once again, what was designed, right? So that's what was designed by whatever solar specialist closed the deal. But if you actually look at the blueprints a little closer, then you'll see that this is the technical version of that layout, right? With all of the specific measurements and everything, this gets sent to the township as they review, just to make sure that everything, basically all of the T's, you dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, to make sure that if we're looking to get a system installed, that it is on point and it's not going to cause any problems when it's installation time. So for most people, they don't realize that this process is usually what takes the longest, right? The permitting process, it depends on, once again, the township, the city, and also the state. Some areas take a longer time for whatever reason. I don't know if they're understaffed or what. It could be a variety of different reasons. It could just be their timeline of their process. And then there's some areas that move extremely quick, right? So it just varies. But this process in itself could take anywhere between 1 to 5 weeks, right, of just processing, right? So it's good to know, because as the deal closes, you may be wondering and asking, well, why is the deal taking so long? Well, as you guys can already see, and I'm not even sure if we're halfway done already, but as you can already see, there's a lot of steps in the process, right? So there's a lot of different areas for a job to get stuck, right? There's a lot of different places for a job to need a specific thing, document, signage, a quick call or whatever to move it forward. But once again, someone wasn't on top of it. Someone wasn't looking it over. Sometimes when I speak with a lot of mentees, I tell them I have to babysit the job. Babysitting the job means I have to look over it constantly on a day-to-day basis just to make sure that the job is moving forward, right? Because a job sitting around not doing anything is bad business for everybody, for the client, for the mentee, also for the mentor as well. So once again, this is the permitting process here, and this is what goes in through this process. Now, once the permitting process is done, we move to the solar installation. And the solar installation literally it can take literally about a day. Pretty easy process. This is when everyone gets excited. The truck comes out with all of the panels, and everyone's excited and woohoo, I'm about to get installed today. Everyone's in that great mood. I finally did it. I'm finally having it installed. And this is what takes place, right? So you see the truck and now when the installation takes place, they always come out roughly about anywhere between was it about 8 to 9 a.m. in the morning. The goal is to be able to start the install as the sun is up or coming up, and be able to operate and do all of the work as the sun is still out, right? So they have to come out early to do that, right? So they come out and then they jump on the roof. Now, I picked this picture specifically so we can, not because it's clear, but I wanted you guys to actually see and understand the installation process, right? So if you can see, forget the panels at the moment, but if you see the racks underneath the panels, right, or those tracks, this is how solar gets installed on a roof, right? We install into the beams of the roof, right? So the beams are the strongest parts of the roof, and they install those tracks across. Once the tracks are installed, and then they lay the panels on top, right? And that allows the obviously for it to have some air underneath it, but that allows for all of the panels to be on one solid track across, so it can look uniform. In addition to that, it also creates more sturdiness for the system overall. So sometimes when you hear some clients say, "Well, I don't like a whole bunch of panels or like a bunch of, was it holes placed in my roof?" Well, that's great because we don't place a bunch of holes in your roof. As you can see, there's a track that's installed only in the beams of the roof, right? So it makes it a little bit easier and seamless for the client. I'm sorry, the homeowner, right? So this is how this is done. And that's what they do. Installation takes anywhere between, say, 6 to 8 hours in one shift. And it can be done even faster than that in some situations as well. Now, after the solar installation is done, we now move to the solar inspection, right? Installation inspection. And the job here, this is where you've seen the TPO, so permission to operate. Before the permission to operate step comes into play, we have to do the inspections, right? So the inspections are basically where you have the inspectors come out and they check to make sure that everything was installed and is going to work properly, right? Very important stage of the process because obviously as the installers did the install, you want to make sure that not only does the system work, but you don't get any unnecessary, all of the work was done the right way, I should say, right? So they check the panels, they also check the electrical aspect of the job just to make sure everything is on the up and up, right? Now, this is important. This isn't the solar company that comes out and does the inspection. This is the city, the utility, right? So they're making sure that it's checked and running smoothly on your behalf or the client's behalf. So that's very important to know and understand that distinction, right? So once they do that, everything usually gets passed and everything is good to go. Once that's now in some cases, because we this does happen from time to time. Sometimes the inspectors will come out and the inspection won't pass for whatever specific reason. Now that is something that's common. It doesn't it or shouldn't ring any alarms. It shouldn't make anyone nervous or have anyone think or feel that something was done wrong. It's usually just a minor thing that that inspector may be a stickler for, that they usually just have to come out, tweak, and then it should be good to go, right? There's not really major reasons why a solar inspection fails, right? So in my experience, and haven't really seen a job that we installed that didn't get passed eventually. Right. Once again, as things happen, we don't live in a perfect world. So sometimes they fail. But once again, we have the company come out, fix whatever needs to be fixed, and then it gets approved from there. Right. So system activation, right? System activation, actually takes place. So these are all of the steps that goes on in the system activation, right? So finding your breaker box and turning on the solar breaker, pretty simple, right? Turning on the AC disconnect, right? That's the next step. Then from there, and as I'm reading them as I'm reading the steps, you can kind of see them on the pictures as well. But turning on the solar inverter, right, which is the box all the way to the right. After that, connecting the system to the home Wi-Fi, right? And then making sure that the LED light is displayed on the system, meaning that it's fully activated. Now, these are all simple steps. When turning on a solar system, there's either two ways that they'll do it. They'll either walk you through this over the phone, right? Because some people, as you can see, it's not overly complicated. So you can either walk you through it over the phone or they'll come out and actually turn it on for you, right? One or the other, right? But this is how the system is actually turned on. And once it's turned on, obviously everyone wants to know exactly how solar works. So this is how it works, right? So step one is getting the daylight from the sun, right? And that's why there's a one next to the sun. Step two is having the solar panels installed on your roof, right? So it generates the electricity from all of the daylight, and then it turns that electricity turns that daylight, I should say, into electricity, right? So step three is it going into an inverter, which basically converts that daylight into, for layman's terms, usable electricity in the house, right? And this is where it goes to step four, right? Turning that electricity into usable electricity. Step five, is it going to all of the functions, plugs, outlets, things of that nature to use in your house for electricity. So it's direct from the sun directly into the house, right? And then step six, any excess that you don't use in the house goes back into the grid, right? And this is what we call net metering, goes back into the grid. And in some areas, either goes back into the grid or it can go into your battery, right? One or the other. If you have a battery, that excess will go into the battery. If you don't, it'll go back into the grid. And literally, this is the process of how solar works. And this is what a household that has solar looks like after everything is done. And this is also how it works long term, right? So these are the steps from A to Z, right? As far as what takes place after the deal is signed, all the way up to after the deal is actually working and functioning on your roof, right? There should be another page that shows how much money people will be saving literally after going solar, but I'll put that on the next slideshow for next time. But with that, I know there was a few questions or text in the chat, so let me make sure we get to these. Let's see. And if anyone has any specific questions, you can please also come off mute and ask as well. Any specific questions at all? Installation company cut the trees if necessary. Yes, installation will cut the trees if necessary. That's a great question. Sometimes there's some trees that are in the way naturally, right? And we'll be able to cut those trees down, trim or cut, right? Just depends on what's needed. And yeah, we can do that for you for sure. My inspection required an additional ground wire. Absolutely. Some do. All right. And let's see, it can go to the grid and to the battery depending on how much your panels generate. Absolutely. Yep, I definitely mentioned that as well. So any other thoughts, any other questions before closing out? Hopefully that was
Yeah.
helpful. It was direct
Um,
as yes.
Sorry. So couple of questions. One is I'm losing my train of thought here. Okay, so one question is during this process, of course,
Mhm.
the uh well, first question is at what stage does the um uh, you know if the inspection is not passed, everything and you schedule a new inspection, does the homeowner have to do anything during that period? Is there something that they need to do to pass the inspection?
Yeah, in my experience, not really. Whatever the reason that it wasn't approved or passed the first time, that information gets sent directly to the company. So usually the company will either come out right before the inspection, fix whatever needs to be done. So the next time it's checked, it gets passed. Once again, sometimes naturally the inspection just doesn't get approved. Some areas are sticklers for certain specific things. So it kind of just happens from time to time. But yeah, there's nothing that the homeowner needs to do. The installers usually take care of everything for you. Great question there.
Okay, so the other question is the uh, after the inspection and activation, is that the time when both the the mentor and the mentee gets paid?
Yes. Oh, that's a great question. Yes. So I talked about M1. Let's talk about is it M2 and M3. So let me actually share that again. Great question there, right? So let me share that. All right. So M1, right? I'll write this on the next one just for visuals. But M1 takes place in between step two and step three, right? So the way Freedom pays out M1 is they pay up to $700, right? So if it's a personal deal, it's up to 700. If it's a mentor split deal, it is 35, right? So that's M1. That's in between step two and three. M2 takes place after step five, right? And M2 is literally 80% of the overall deal, right? So if it is let's say it's $10,000 deal for round numbers, then 80% would be 8,000. right? And 8,000 divided into two, if it was a split deal, it's 400, 4,000, 4,000, right? So it gets paid out after install, right? So that's where M2 is. M3 takes place after step seven, and M3 is 20%, the remaining 20% of the deal, right? And it gets paid out after I'm sorry, after step seven, right? Now, it's also important to know that these steps usually get paid out 2 weeks after, right? So as I just showed you, when the deal goes through with scope of work confirmed, whatever date it happens, usually 2 weeks after that will it get paid out, right? So when the deal gets installed, we had it installed today in Colorado. So literally, not this Friday, but 2 weeks from this Friday, it'll get paid out, right? So it pays out a little, basically 2 weeks after it actually gets completed, right? Now that might be changing. I know there's some things in the works where they're trying to kind of speed up that process, for those who are in solar, and focusing on solar things of that nature. But right now, that's the process, at the moment. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, 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 for sure. And any other thoughts, questions, concerns anyone may have, um, out there from the overall process after the deal is closed? Any other thoughts, questions at all?
Yeah, Idris.
Yes, sir.
So when the deal is initiated and the survey is done, um, at what point, if any, if there's a issue with the survey, do I um update anything, or is that done through Freedom Forever? And also, do I stay in contact with anybody in charge of the survey, install, and the PTO? Is it going to be one team through the process with Freedom, or is it going to be different people handling the customer?
That's another great question. That's another great question. Let me show you. Let me just keep this slide up here, right? So you asked after site survey, is there, correct me if I'm wrong. You said, do you have to speak to the client, I'm guessing you're referring to?
No.
Okay.
Well, if there's something that has to be done, then the customer is going to want to know if the survey passed, right?
If the
So who?
survey passed. Okay.
Say again.
You said if the survey passed.
Right. So the survey didn't pass, right? And then at that point, the people who did the survey, they inform Freedom, or that they are Freedom. Is a survey done by Freedom?
Yeah, so let me just help out with not technology, the verbiage, right?
Right.
So the site survey doesn't get passed or approved. The site survey is had, right?
Got
And
it. Okay.
whatever the situation is from the site survey, that information gets passed back to Freedom.
Okay.
And to answer the second question, it is Freedom who does the site survey. It's not going to be subcontractors, right? So
Got
Freedom
it.
basically have their own W-2 employees that do the site surveys for all jobs.
Right.
Mhm.
But then I guess what I'm getting at is, at any point in time, do I have to deal with Freedom, or do I just deal with emails that are sent to me from Freedom?
Oh yeah, so yeah, will you have to deal with Freedom? Absolutely.
Okay.
This is all of the work that goes on behind the scenes that no one sees,
Right.
right? The calls so for one job. So for each of these steps, there's a completely different department, right? However, every job has what's it called? Let's say in-house solar specialist from
Uh-huh.
Freedom, who's walking the job through. However, if you heard what I mentioned earlier about babysitting the job, um,
Yes.
the consultant should be not babysitting the job, but making sure that the job is moving forward. right?
Right.
So these solar specialists in-house from Freedom,
Hmm.
they have let's just say they have 25 jobs each, right? So this job would be one of their 25, right? So they're not going to be on top of it the way I might be. So I,
Correct.
as the consultant, need to follow up. I need to make sure that it's going through each and every step as soon as possible to move the job along. Now, that's complicated to do, obviously, when there's more and more jobs, and you're in and out of appointments, and there's just a lot of things going on. However, it is best to be on top of it to the best of your ability because sometimes the specialist may forget a step, right? Or they may be dealing with another job. So it's not their job or I don't put it in their hands to move the job forward. Take that on as a personal responsibility as the consultant on the job and not the salesperson, if
Okay.
that makes sense. I know that was a lot, but hopefully I hope I answered some of your questions.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Good.
what you just explained, you're talking about when you say babysitting, um, the mentee as well. Is what who you're referring to, or
No, 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 not babysitting the mentee, babysitting the job to
yeah,
move it.
yeah, no, who will be babysitting the job?
Oh,
That's
the
what I'm asking. The
mentor. The
mentee.
mentor. No, 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 no. The mentor.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. The mentee may not know what to do to to help out.
Right. That's what I was. I
Yeah,
just wanted some clarity.
absolutely. And I know we have Sabrina with her hand up.
Hi, Idris. Quick question. So you going back to the pay, how does it work when you have a referral and when do they get paid?
Yes. So the referral usually gets paid. You're talking about the affiliate. You're referring
Correct,
to the
correct.
affiliate. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the affiliate gets paid once the job is complete. That's after system activation. So the affiliate they probably get paid when they pay out M3 to the consultant mentor mentee, right? Or whoever
Awesome.
on the job.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Great question as well. And I see we have Marva as well. Can you hear me, Marva? Okay, I think might be muted out.
The affiliate gets paid by Freedom
Yes, if it's
Okay.
put into
into the agreement
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's a great question. I want to make sure I answer that because that's a great question for people to understand. But Marva, can you hear me, Marva? Okay. Yeah, I think you're muted out. Let me see if I can unmute you by any chance. Let me see, unmute. Are you are you able to unmute? No, not yet. Okay. We'll definitely get to you, Marva. I'll come back to you in a second. Don't worry, we got you. We got you. But Vic, I definitely want to answer that question as well. Very important question. And I forgot what the question was again. What was it? Please ask it again. What was that question?
Um, ah, shit, I forgot to.
Does the
Oh,
affiliate
It
get
was
paid
about
by
the
Right.
Freedom?
referral
Yeah.
being
Does the
paid
affiliate?
by,
Yeah.
oh, yes. Does the affiliate get paid by Freedom?
Right.
Yes. So when an affiliate puts so it's extremely important for mentor, mentee, everyone who's processing the deal to make sure that the affiliate is in before the deal gets closed, right? When the affiliate is put into the system through build, obviously you can choose what amount it is, 500, 750, 1,000, whatever it is. Once the deal is in, now the mentor approves it, right? And when it gets approved, whatever that amount is that you set shows up on the deal automatically. So that 500, 750, $1,000 is now automatically priced into whatever deal we move the deal forward with. So it's already priced in, right? Now, if that affiliate is not plugged into the bill back office, then it might get overlooked when the deal is being closed, right? And obviously, we don't want to overlook it because we want to make sure that that affiliate gets paid, right? So I would say it's always important to make sure that you put that in early, so you know. But yes, to answer the specific question, the affiliate does get paid from Freedom, because it's a part of the deal. Right. Yes, Miss Johnson.
Hi, thanks for all of this great information,
Yep.
Idris. So now, how important is it for people to, in terms of the mentee and maybe even the affiliate, to keep track of their email and look for that information from Freedom about getting paid? Because they have to submit, like, what is it, a W-9 before they get paid? Because I had a situation where someone um, didn't pay attention to their email and they didn't get paid because they didn't, put in that form. I think it's a W-9.
Yep. Yeah, it's extremely important for them to just be on the lookout for that email. Because yes, you do have to put in your W-9 form to get paid from Freedom. In most cases, or in some, well, yeah, in most cases, it will come through. Yeah, I think it should come through the billed account, but once again, they need to put it in for them to get paid out on it.
And then sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The second part of my question is that this graph that you have up here that says next steps, is it correct to say that the customer also has access to some type of linear graph to let them know what status their project is at?
Absolutely. Great
Okay.
question as well. So yes, that graph shows up in their email as well. And that email is literally taking them through a step-by-step process on each and every step throughout the whole entire process. Now, the reality is that most homeowners may not necessarily check that because they're not necessarily looking for it. This is another very important part. So yes, I as a consultant will update the client whenever need be, right? In most cases, this process that you see, these next steps, this process takes anywhere between 30 to 90 days. So I like saying this sometimes that if you don't hear from me as the consultant, then that's usually a good thing because that means the project is just moving along. There's not necessarily a specific update that I need to update you with, right? Sometimes it might be 30, 45 days, and I'll have a client call me and they're saying, hey, what's going on? You forgot about me. You didn't call me and say nothing, or, I'm wondering what's happening. And I have to tell them, like, oh, you're right. We didn't speak in a month or so, but I just want you to know that everything's moving along perfectly, right? Usually when the call comes back, it's because something has changed. There's more money that needs to be added to the deal. Is usually some type of issue that needs to be fixed when we call back the client. If we don't, then that means that the deal is just moving along smoothly, and that's a great situation. Sometimes, I don't want to say there's some they can be over communication, but yeah, sometimes you can over communicate with a client, and sometimes that's not necessarily good. I definitely like to keep people updated, but once again, sometimes it's just not an update to give, right? The job is just moving smoothly, and that's a great deal, right? And sometimes, right, and it happened recently, the job will move lightning fast. So there was a job that I closed, I think last week, and it's already scheduled for install. I think I closed it, let's say, I don't even know if it was a week ago, and it's already scheduled for install, right? And this was in Texas. So some jobs move extremely quick, right? And then some jobs in certain areas just take a little bit longer. So that's not the normal, just to be clear, right? It's not something that happens every day with every job. So the goal is to make sure that people's expectations are managed, and they're not just expecting every job to play out that way. But it does happen, right? So Hopefully I
So
answered your question.
you did answer my question. So as someone who has gone through this process, I just want to, say that um it really did go just like this. Some things got slowed down at different stages just because of, things happen along the way, but it really did go pretty much real smoothly. The only thing is that I wanted to say is that, you need to emphasize the importance of, if you have a question, call your mentor first, because freedom does give the client access to call them, but it could be confusing if you call freedom before you call your mentor. So if anybody ever goes through this process, or if you're helping a client go through the process, I would just suggest that you call your mentor first because they have more answers than anybody else. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And that's so much of a great point as well. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because now it allows me to kind of like add more light to that. So yes, when you call the freedom, either you're calling freedom, like just randomly freedom customer service, and they may not know and understand the project the same way the mentor does, right? So they're going to give you some very general information that may not even be 100% correct. Or you'll be speaking to the specialist on the job, which they're the specialist on the job, but once again, they may not know all of the specifics as that mentor did that closed the deal for you, right? So it's always best to keep that healthy communication with the mentor, as the deal is processing, if you have any specific questions. Now, obviously, a lot of our mentors, have the information, and are competent to answer the questions. But I will always check with them first before reaching out to Freedom for a fact. Because also, as a mentee, and this has happened quite a few times as well, there was someone on my team that reached out to Freedom directly, without speaking to me on a job. And they reached out to Freedom. They confused Freedom, and Freedom didn't know who the mentor or the salesperson was for the job. Basically told them something that wasn't supposed to be told. And then it kind of complicated the job, where basically the job wasn't able to get installed anymore, right? So, once again, probably best to just communicate with the mentor first instead of doing things that could mess the job up for yourself. Um, so very important detail. I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Mr. Campbell, but Mr. Campbell, real quick, I know we have Marva. I see the question here that she's asking. So she's asking about the percentages of the payout. So M1 is up to $700, right? M1, and that can either be 700 to the one person closing the deal, or split 50-50 with mentor and mentee. So that's M1. M2 is 80% of the job, right? And then M3 is the remaining 20%, right? So that's how it gets paid out, right? So M1 up to 700, M2 80% of the job, M3 is the remaining 20%, right? Hopefully that helps out Marva. And Mr. Campbell, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted you to elaborate a little more on the W9. Um, is that only applicable in the case of the affiliate, or is that also something that, as a partner, we need to provide before we
Another
get paid?
Another great question. Absolutely. As a partner, as a builder with Build, you definitely will need to add that W-9 form as well before you get paid, right? So, I'm trying to think. I forget the process overall, but I think whatever money you have might sit in the account until I think it hits a certain hits a certain amount. I forget exactly what that amount is, right? I don't know if it's $40 or $60 or $50. I'm not sure, but it's a certain amount that you have to be over before you can take the money out. And yes, you do have to fill out the W-9. So now that connects you with Build, and then you'll be able to get paid from there. So yes, all builders need to do that, as well as affiliates to get their affiliate payout as well. So great question on that as well. So if you haven't already set that up, you might need to, and it would definitely, yeah, it would be great to do so. Any other questions?
Is that can you set that up through your back office?
Yep, through your back office, where in your iWallet. Yep, and yeah, it's easy process. Takes maybe about 5 minutes, if that, to set up and work that out. But yes, definitely great question there. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns? Yeah, as we close out, yeah, I did want to mention once again, this information is for just so we're aware for us to know, right? It's not necessarily information to go spreading out to clients and telling them each and every step of what's going to happen afterwards. And this, we go through, this is for you to know so you know what to expect, right? Once again, sometimes this is why a lot of this information isn't shared, because it doesn't necessarily need to be shared with the client, right? Client doesn't and it's not because we're trying to hide anything from the client. It's just, the client has one perception of what's taking place, and then we on the other side, there's a whole different, there's a whole bunch of other stuff happening that we make look easy to the client, right? So this is why we don't share it, right? All of this work, and let me break it down even more. If you start explaining some of this stuff, clients associate everything you're saying with a price, right? So when you say, oh, the site survey is going to come out, they're going to get on the roof, they're going to check the electrical, we may need to upgrade it. Client is thinking, how much is that going to cost me? That in itself could lose the deal for you, right? When you now say, yeah, we're going to take care of permits and yeah, we got to get them processed and approved, client is thinking, okay, I took out a permit to add an additional room to my house. That costs $750. How much is this permit going to cost? Right? And they start associating things with a price, and you may walk yourself into a room that you can't walk out of. Right? So the best way to prevent that is to not even bring it up, but now as a informed mentor, mentee, all right, you know what to expect so you can manage your expectations as the deals continue to move forward and go through. Right? Hopefully that makes sense as well. And I appreciate everyone jumping on. Appreciate everyone asking those great questions. Let's continue to build. Let's continue to grow. And I'll just open it up if there's any other questions, thoughts, or concerns at all from anyone else before we close out. All right, all right, all right. Once again, appreciate everyone. Hope everyone has a great night and a great evening. As we all know, we have the Millionaire Mentorship Call taking place in roughly an hour. So let's definitely get ready and prepare for that, and look forward to helping and assisting everyone in the future for sure, right? Take care. Have a great night.